And this video is brought to you by the number 4, chapter 4, that is, exercise 4.1 on page 164 through 166. So the first thing we need to do is open up the Town Hall 1 that we completed last chapter. So if you're keeping that in Town Hall 1, that's where I'm keeping it. I just keep updating my Town Hall 1. That's where you would go. And I'm going to open that as a brackets project. It tells us to open the index and then separately open the templates. I don't see that that's necessary, and I like to open the entire project at once, especially since I know that I'm also going to be opening the main.css. So I'm going to end up having 3 of these files open, so I might as well just open all of them. So we're working on CSS today. So we're working on styling this HTML page. It looks like right now I have in Town Hall 1, let's see, I don't want to be there, I want to be there. Okay, so I know that I'm working on the right one because I have this celebrating our 75th, well, I have all of the information in there. So I know that this is where I need to be. And it tells me that I need to grab from the templates, the basic HTML. There are a couple of lines that go in the head section that instead of remembering them or instead of typing them in longhand, one way to do this is to get the templates. Specifically, we're pulling in these 2 CSS files, or these 2 CSS link tags. So there's a link to the normalized CSS and a link to, and that one's going to be the CSS that we're working on today. So I'm going to copy those, Control C, go back to my index, and place both of those underneath the favicon link. Get those indented nicely. Then I need to refer to the main.css file in the styles subfolder. So the subfolder would be styles, and I'm looking at the main there. We'll use that slip now. Normalize is going to help to make the, well, normalize, help to make the pages look more similar even on different browsers. So that's basically what we're doing with that. The main.css is where we're going to put in our customizations. CSS does stand for cascading style sheets. In our case now we have 2 style sheets and they, well, cascade. So the rules, if there are rules that apply to an element, let's say an H1, both in the normalize and in the main.css, then the one that is more specific will be taken, will be the one that is actually used. Or if they have the same specificity, so they both just specify H1, the selector is H1 in both of them, then it will go to the second or the later CSS that is found. So it matters what order we have this in. It matters that the normalize goes first because it will cascade down to if there's a competing or a conflicting rule, then we want it to be the one that we set ourselves. We want it to show what we're telling it to show, not to show what's in normalize. Normalize is really just our fallback. That's why it's the first one. Okay, so we have our CSS files that we're working on, and now we're on page 165, and number 4 tells us to start looking at styles. main.css, and it has a little bit already there. Notice one of the things that is really good about this is that it provides comments. These are comments. Comments are not used in code. Comments are used for the humans who are looking at the code. So it doesn't have to look exactly like this. The styles for the elements is just telling the humans, telling the developers or the teacher or the maintainer of your code or your page. It's telling them what's coming next. And this is nice and organized. So we have something for all of the elements, and then the header, the section, and the footer. And that's how we have this this page organized, with the header, the section, and the footer. Okay, notice that there are already a few styles here. The body already has font family and font size on it. The image in the header is already floated to the left. And in the main, or in the section, the main is selected, then the float is cleared. That's essentially what this means. So clear the left float is what that means. So let's go ahead and look at this page. I can't look at it. Let me pull up the index first. Okay. All right, I guess that's it. Now let me get back to my CSS. And I can start adding style rules. So in number 5, add 2 style rules for the header to the style sheet. The first one should be for the H2 element. So any H2 in the header, and that's how we say an element inside another element, is by just having a space in between them. So we go from the less specific to the more specific, even as we're writing the selector. So the H2 that is inside the header, or any H2s that are inside the header, will get this style on it. And that's the font size. I have my property name and a colon, and then a value, 170%, and in the line with a semicolon. And you might have even seen a little bit of change over there, because the font size did change. And set the color. Again, a property name is color, then a colon, and then the color number. You can use a hex code, you can use an RGB, or you can use the named color. You can certainly use. Okay, and in a semicolon, and indent the heading 30 pixels. Indent. Okay, so see, I didn't remember that it was text indent, or with the name of the property, in order to indent it. So I just started typing, and brackets brings up for me a list of properties that have those words in it. So I can come down here to text indent. As soon as I was typing INDE, it was showing up what I might want to use. And this text indent looks like the one that's most likely to be used. So text indent, and I want to make that 30 pixels. And it looks like that's what it did. It indented this H2 over 30 pixels. That's what I wanted. Okay. The second one should be for the H3 element. So my header H3. So any H3 in the header will get a font size of 130%, a font style to italic, and a text indent to 30 pixels. And that looks pretty good. And I think it's time for me to pause my video, or to go to the next video.